The John Lebang Show has been known to make people laugh, sing, think, scream, throw things in rage, and generally lose their minds. Listener discretion is advised.
Worldwide and out to the greater universe, you're listening to the John Lebang Show.
Greetings, Earthlings, neighbors, friends, family, people from all over. If you're in the Southern Hemisphere, Northern Hemisphere, East Coast, West Coast, orbiting above the planet Earth, we want to welcome you to the show. We've got a great deal of information that we're going to be throwing at you this hour, and we hope that you'll be able to keep up. If you can't, that's okay, because you can follow along. We have an article available on our website, www.jlebang.com, called 201, a simulated event. We want you to go and grab that. While you're doing that, we'll address a couple little things for the people who are just tuning in, and to people who are, the naysayers, the people who are downplaying the numbers, including the people who are sensationalizing the numbers. I know a lot of people have their own agendas as to why they're promoting the different things that they are promoting during this whole COVID-19 crisis that is upon us. Some people are worried about their pocketbook, so they're trying to downplay the numbers so that way everybody can get back to work, so that they can continue to make that money, because for whatever reason, they haven't saved enough money to survive a month or two without any cash flow coming in. Then we have the people who sensationalize it, the mainstream malpractice media, some of the politicians out there, even the YouTubers. People are on all sides of the issues, and I'm trying, as your humble host, trying to break things down for you so you can understand, so you can kind of get an understanding of what is going on. Because there is so much information thrown at you that you really don't know, and it continually changes from day to day. So that information you knew from 2 weeks ago no longer is pertinent, because for some reason or another, those facts have changed. Now I'm assuming everybody has gone to the website and clicked on the article 201, a simulated event. And I'd like to have you all follow along. Event 201 is an event that was held in the month of October. Now let me enlighten you on what this event was about. Event 201 was a 3.5-hour pandemic tabletop exercise that simulated a series of dramatic, scenario-based, facilitated discussions confronting difficult, true-to-life dilemmas associated with response to a hypothetical but scientifically plausible pandemic. 15 global businesses, governments, and public health leaders were players in the simulated exercise that highlighted unresolved real-world policies and economic issues that could be solved with sufficient political will, financial investment, and attention now and in the future. During a recent broadcast, ladies and gentlemen, I did make a point about how the Johns Hopkins COVID-19 tracking website looked like an old video game named Superpower. So as I continue with the information I'm going to give you, I may give you my own opinions here and there. I may bring up some certain things that might be helpful to you, and you might say, well, why didn't you tell us this earlier? Well, ladies and gentlemen, that is a dilemma that I had faced for a long time. And slowly but surely, I was trying to enlighten you all on what may be possibly happening without actually telling you, hey, this is it. Because as you know, ladies and gentlemen, I never proclaim to know everything out there. And I'm not going to tell you what to believe. I'm just going to show you the information. Back to some of the information now. The old video game that I was discussing was called Superpower. You can look that up on Wikipedia. You can also follow the link that's on that article that I've made available to you on the website. Now, the exercise, which is Event 201, consisted of pre-recorded newscasts, live staff briefings, and moderate discussions on specific topics. Isn't that exactly how the COVID-19 task force is acting? That's part of their playbook. Media supported by daily news briefings on subject matter like masks, deaths, shortages, test kits, or whatever else they can keep us focused on. It's all according to the plan. Now back to the event. These issues were carefully designed in a compelling narrative that educated the participants and the audience at the John Hopkins Center for Health Security, World Economic Forum, and Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. These players were all in the subjects, or they were referenced either on this show at some point or during a daily brew. Here, we can continue on and go to their recommendations. I'm going to leave that up to you to follow along later on. But let me just kind of boil it all down. All the recommendations that were provided at this event called Event 201 are now being used in the current scenario of Operation COVID-19. And if you don't believe me, folks, you can go right over to those recommendations after the show and check out what they're saying. You can look at those and read those as we're carrying on here as well. But let me just boil down what I just told you so you understand what I'm trying to say. Back in October, Bill Gates Foundation, the John Hopkins Institute, and others all participated in a private, invitation-only event. And the event was a simulated pandemic and the events that would transpire from that event. They spent 3.5 hours. You had to be there by invitation. And they went through all types of scenarios: health, economic, government control. All of it was part of the Event 201. And you're wondering, why am I just hearing about this? Why would they even schedule something like that? Well, ladies and gentlemen, governments are always preparing for unforeseen circumstances, unforeseen events that might arise in the world. They have a plan for just about everything. And they've run simulations on these plans because they want to know how the outcome might turn out. And then they take these plans when a real life scenario happens, whether it be man-made or some kind of natural event. And they take this basic playbook, they take this basic plan, and then they adjust it to the situation. A basic idea, a basic event simulated that would mirror the current events that are happening as of right now. They are happening before our eyes. And we got a few minutes left. I do not want to get into the next part just quite yet. But all my friends out there that are naysayers or the sensationalists, everybody that has in some way or another thought of themselves as some sort of expert. Have you considered this, ladies and gentlemen? Have you considered that they already put into effect a simulation that mirrors the current global pandemic? And as we get into the scenario that they went through at the event 201, we'll do that in the next segment, folks, because we only have about 2.5 minutes left. And again, if you're not able to follow along, please go to the website, www.jlebang.com. If I'm going too slow for some of you, please forgive me, but I'm trying to give everybody a chance to get caught up, to get on board. As we fill in some of the blanks that we as people who haven't been able to really determine, because there's been a lot of information, and a lot of it disinformation, a lot of it good information, and a great deal of the information comes from the sources that many of us never trusted. Yet, for many of us, all of a sudden we are now trusting those sources. Over the past week, many weeks, I've been laying out this stuff slowly for you. I'd posted the John Hopkins numbers, ran the numbers for you, telling you, showing you that the numbers that they were projecting, the numbers that were actual, were different than the so-called projections from either side of the issue. They weren't as low as the 0.2% that many of you out there were echoing that you had heard. They weren't in those numbers that the Chinese gave us, that many of you believed from the very get-go. Though I told you, the banger, I'm not that brilliant of a guy, but I told you, don't believe the Chinese numbers, because they're getting it, then they're passing it on to our government, who then is filtering it down to the malpractice media. By the time we got any information from China, it was third-hand information, at very best. Yet we had a whole bunch of people touting those numbers. Yet we see what's happening in Italy, where they're closer to 10% of people dying. A country that is more similar to us than China. And yet they're having a great deal higher rate than China. So with that being said, folks, as we run on that first break, stay tuned. In the second segment, we're going to cover the scenario that they went over at Event 201. Please stay tuned. Hey, Uncle Shady, where are they going? Hey, you, get back here. The John Lebang Show will be right back. Are you in need of commercial or residential window cleaning? Do you need your office cleaned? Maybe custodial work? How about some gutter cleaning? If you do, then call Pane in the Glass. For a beautiful shine that's crystal clear, call Pane and the Glass. You can find them on Facebook at Pane and the Glass. You're listening to the John Lebang Show.
It's better than an iReader convention.
All right, now, folks, let's get into the scenario of Event 201, a simulated pandemic. Event 201 simulates an outbreak of a novel coronavirus transmitted from bats to pigs to people that eventually become efficiently transmittable from person to person, leading to severe pandemic. Now, the pathogen and the disease it caused are modeled largely on SARS, but it is more transmittable in the community setting by people with mild symptoms. Now, isn't that what we're being told COVID-19 is? Outside of a few minor details, ladies and gentlemen, this is exactly what they are saying about COVID-19. The similarities are incredibly suspicious. Back to the scenario. The disease starts in pig farms in Brazil and quietly and slowly at first, but then it starts to spread more rapidly in healthcare settings. When it starts to spread effectively from person to person in the low-income, densely packed neighborhoods of some of the megacities, well, the epidemic explodes. It is first exported by air travel to Portugal, the United States, China, and then to many other countries. Although at first some countries are able to control it, it continues to spread and be reproduced, and eventually no country can maintain control. Now, doesn't that sound like Germany? They're doing pretty well with the COVID-19, while other countries are doing really poor against it. Yet, we've heard that this virus can be caught more than once. And you hear people talking about herd immunity. Well, how many times does a human have to catch it before that an individual has to catch it before they're immune, before they're part of that herd immunity? And there's no possibility of a vaccine being available in the first year, according to this event. This is a fictional antiviral drug. There is a fictional antiviral drug that can help the sick, but not significantly limiting the spread of this disease. Now, Wuhan fits the description of the low-income, density-packed neighborhoods. And the first major cases in the United States were in old folks' homes. Now, am I allowed to say old folks' homes without offending someone? But it's very curious, ladies and gentlemen. Pretty much the line from the CDC and the FDA is that it's going to take a year to 18 months to get the vaccine, and we're hearing that certain drugs might be able to mitigate this for a little while until we can get the vaccine. Right along playbook event 201. Back to the event itself, it says, since the whole human population is susceptible during the initial months of the pandemic, the cumulative number of cases increase exponentially, doubling every week. Isn't that interesting, folks? And as the cases and deaths accumulate, the economy and societal consequences become increasingly severe. Boy, somebody knew something was coming down the pike. The scenario ends at the 18th month point. Where have we heard that number before? With 65 million deaths, the pandemic is beginning to slow due to the decreasing number of susceptible people. That means a lot of people are dead, and a lot of people have already caught it, were really sick and got over it. Some had mild conditions, some had barely any conditions, but that's when herd immunity begins to really take hold 18 months from now. The pandemic will continue to, at some rate, until there is an effective vaccine or until 80 to 90% of the global population has been exposed. From that point on, it is likely to be an epidemic childhood disease or an endemic childhood disease. So after 18 months, year and a half, when we've, according to this simulation, been riddled with 65 million deaths, and they finally come up with a vaccine 18 months. Funny. Isn't that what we're hearing, folks? This is shockingly accurate to what we're being programmed to believe about COVID-19 and the circumstances around it. Yet we have people not even focused on the fact that we just did a simulation. And you realize, folks, you do simulations to prepare for these things because you know they're coming. And we just had an article that said the Army, the military knew this was coming. Now, some people are saying, well, this is natural. We've heard a lot of that pushed around. We've heard the bioweapon. We've heard all sorts of things that we don't know what to believe. But I tell you, folks, it is eerily similar to this event. This simulated event that the Johns Hopkins Institute, Bill and his wife Gates Foundation, and many others, they participated in this. And we know Bill Gates is a big vaccination guy. Yet this is not even talked about. That could this have been a preparation to see how this would happen? So when something possibly was unleashed, because they had an idea, because they had a clue that something was going to rip through the planet, so they prepared for it. They almost got the whole thing 100% accurate. Where it started, a little different. But how do we know it wasn't started somewhere else? How do we know that? And it just didn't get transferred to where China was the first major country to be hit. And the way they handled it, and that's another thing that the down players do not take into account, is how the Chinese handled the COVID-19 situation. They didn't just quarantine people. They dragged them away. They welded them in their house. If they were on the subways, and the train stations, they would beat them until they sat still, and then they sanitized them. Or whatever they were spraying on them. And let's not forget the over 40 incinerators, mobile incinerators, that China employed during all this. And what about the 21 million or so phone accounts that are now gone in China? Disappeared. So the down players who don't think this virus is that bad, anything different than any other normal virus, how many people were not counted but yet eliminated in China? Let's try to wrap this up a little bit here so we can go on to other topics. Event 201 pandemic exercise conducted in October 18th, 2019 vividly demonstrated a number of these important gaps in pandemic preparedness. This simulated event, which showed our weaknesses, and now our weaknesses are being taken advantage of by this pandemic, by this virus. Now, this invitation-only audience of nearly 130 people attended this exercise, and a live stream of the event was available to everyone, and that is available on my website, www.jlebang.com, and go look at those videos that are available for everyone to watch. I've spent a little time watching those videos. It may turn on a light bulb or two for some of you. Now, some of the people that were involved and were the lead for this exercise came from the Johns Hopkins Center, the World Economic Forum, and Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Those people are the ones planning for this, not the government. I'm surprised the Trilateral Commission wasn't there. Now, Event 201 was supported by funding from the Open Philanthropy Project. Go look who's all part of that project, my friends, because you'll be quite surprised, and some more little light bulbs might go on inside your head. Now, some banger notes, if I may. Before doing any live action event, it is standard operating procedure, ladies and gentlemen, to have a series of simulations. Event 201 was the final simulation for our current event. They are following that playbook to the letter. Other simulations that prepared the elites for Operation COVID-19 are Clade X, Dark Winter, and Atlantic Storm. Going back as far as 2005, I believe. You see, they run these simulations to protect and expand their power. It's not just them trying to protect you. They really have little interest in protecting you. Because if they protect you and not their power, what good is it? It's to know how to control you during the situation or event like a COVID-19. Event 201 is unleashed in the real world per COVID-19. Again, you can go to the website www.jlebang.com to get a copy of this outline for the show, basically giving you all kinds of different information about Event 203 that we just can't cover here directly on the broadcast as we are limited with time. We're going to take a quick timeout. When we come back, we'll go over the COVID-19 timeline as per reported here on the John Lebang Show and the Daily Brew, and show you that there's a hell of a lot of similarities to COVID-19 and Event 201. Please stay tuned.
Don't move a muscle. The John Lebang Show. Right back.
With lots of fun and excitement. Yes!
Jim's Tuxedo and Menswear is your one-stop shop for tuxedos and men's quality suits. We go the extra mile to make sure your tux or suit is the perfect fit. Our huge selection is second to none in the state.
Looking good.
Outstanding customer service.
And we're located on Dix Toledo in Southgate. Call today, 734-285-3253.
Jim's Tuxedo and Menswear is the place to be.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming to Jim's Tuxedos and Menswear.
You know I had to come to the best.
That's right.
Hey, man, it's at the bottom of the hour, man. Do you know where your kids are, man?
If you want to contact the John Lebang Show, feel free to send an email to jlebang@live.com. And if you're on Twitter, look them up at John Lebang. And don't forget to go to his Facebook page at The John Lebang Show. Banger. Now here's John.
Welcome back, folks. Hope you're finding this show quite illuminating as we're trying to help you get a better understanding of what possibly is going on behind all the scenes. COVID-19 has a very similar trajectory as Event 201. So if you want to see what's coming down the pike, well, I'd check out that website and let you go there and peruse the information there. Now, as I said, COVID-19 has a timeline. And if you'll indulge me, I'd like to begin the timeline all the way back to October 18th, 2019, where Event 201 was simulated. From there, the first cases of COVID-19 are reported in China somewhere between November and December. By January, cases were reported in many, many countries. On January 26th, I gave you my thoughts on the coronavirus in episode 362. You can catch the first segment right there on the website, or you can go to our archives and catch the entire show. As we moved into February, the pandemic was spreading. February 2nd, we did a episode 364 in which we called it It's the Coronavirus Continued. More information was coming out about the coronavirus, and oddly enough, as we look back on 2020 hindsight, interestingly enough, by February 23rd, we did another exclusive video, episode 370, where it's called COVID-19 Continues to Spread. We covered even more information on there that will tie in to the scenario of Event 301. We move into March, and that's where things really pick up. We call March the perfect Hegelian storm. March 1st, we had an interview with Frank Salvato of Underground USA. Go to our website and you can catch that there. We cover all different subject matter that it relates to COVID-19, the government, and things happening at that time. March 8th, a week later, Italy locks down their country, and for some reason, test kits in the U.S. are contaminated, and the CDC denies the FDA officials from entering their building. Still on March 8th, we do a video, part of our show, the John Lebang Show, episode 373, called The Virus State of Emergency. We were discussing what was coming down the pike at that time, and boy, we were only a week out from getting everything right there. On March 9th, during the Daily Brew, we found out that Saudi Arabia slashed their oil prices and the stock market took a massive hit. Following the scenario of Event 201 to the letter, COVID-19 is following Event 201 to the letter. Now on March 10th, New York deploys National Guard. Seattle prepares for lockdowns. March 11th, hospitals prepare for 96 million. That's incredible. U.S. fighters intercepted a Russian plane off the coast of Alaska. March 12th, U.S. suspends all flights to Europe, and the U.S. begins to have massive layoffs. March 13th was a huge day for the United States. Trump declares a national emergency, putting in play a host of executive orders that is under the purview of the FEMA director. And China, the same day, mind you, blames the U.S. and says it possibly is a bioweapon launched by the U.S. On March 14th, COVID-19, we did a article called COVID-19, The Perfect Hegelian Storm. That's exclusively on our website, still up there for you to read. Really want to get that read in because that's very important, because from that point on, it is following almost precisely the route that we laid out in that article. Also on March 14th, in the Daily Brew, U.S. ordering for worst case scenario. The next day, March 15th, we did a video. What's next? COVID-19. That was part of episode 374. We followed that up in the second segment with national emergencies and executive orders. A video you can also go see, and that will enlighten you a little bit more about those executive orders I was talking about that are under the FEMA director. Also on March 15th, we did a video called Coronavirus Discussion Continues, also part of episode 374 of the John Lebang Show. That video is also available on the website. March 15th also was the day France and Spain declared a lockdown and the army was deployed in the United Kingdom. Day after that, New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut closed bars and eateries, all falling in line step by step. The rights of the people were beginning to be removed from all parts of the world. March 17th, government wants phone data to track COVID-19 patients. Also, and maybe even more interesting, China banishes U.S. journalists from the country. Day after that, March 19th, Trump declares the U.S. on a wartime footing. Wartime footing. The day after, China kicks out journalists from the U.S. Only a few days after they tried to blame the U.S. for the COVID-19 outbreak, and not too long after the national emergency. That day also meant that the U.S. and Canada were shutting their border to each other. A couple days later, on March 21st, the National Guard was deployed in 22 states, equaling a soft version of martial law beginning. You may not feel that way. That is my opinion. We can disagree if you'd like. Now, on March 22nd, we did a video running the numbers at the John Hopkins website. And I've had many friends, many colleagues, many associates attack me for the numbers I showed you that website produced. Not realizing I was only showing you the website as a clue, as a possible link to a larger picture. And most of the people out there, most of the people who are so enlightened and who have become an expert at this whole COVID-19 didn't get it, and they came back with simulated magical numbers come out of the air, blown up, whatever, claiming this person and that person claims this and that and the other thing, not looking at what I tried to point out to you, that the website John Hopkins, who was part of Event 201, You didn't know about that yet. I was slowly letting you know. I can't just drop this on people. If you just throw things at people, they'll turn away and forget it. They'll think you're wacky. They'll think it's a conspiracy theory. But that's not what we do here, ladies and gentlemen. We theory craft. Much different. So France locks down. The army is deployed in the UK. New York shuts down bars. Governors want your phone data. All this stuff is going on. We run the numbers from the Johns Hopkins Institute showing that whatever numbers are being bantied about are not matching up with Johns Hopkins. We're not saying, we never did say that Johns Hopkins was 100% accurate in their reporting of the affected cases of COVID-19, the reported affected cases, or the numbers of deaths. We were just showing you that what they were telling you was different than what you were out there being told by the malpractice media. But instead of realizing that I was showing you a clue, a lot of you decided to poo-poo all the information because you heard from a site that, well, solidifies your belief, or maybe an article that projects the same belief you do. You'd rather do that than to use that thinking mind of yours to see through some of this. How do we look on time, folks? How do we look on time? Oh, we got about a minute and a half. We're going to have to continue this in the fourth segment. I told you, ladies and gentlemen, there's so much information, so much to gather up and to grasp and to understand and to see how the timeline has worked out, very similar to the Event 201. That was a simulation of the very event, the possible very event that we're actually living in real time. All the actions, all the scenarios that came from that are coming to fruition to the letter. When we get back, we'll finish out this baby, and who knows? Who knows? We'll see what we come up with. Smoke them if you got them.
Because the John Lebang Show will be right back.
After this, that's guaranteed. Yes. Absolute Skin and Body Care, located in Livonia, Michigan. If you're in need of laser hair removal, skin care, laser tattoo removal, or laser hair regrowth, call Absolute Skin and Body Care. They're located at 37625 Ann Arbor Road, Suite 105 in Livonia, Michigan. Their phone number is 248-533-0448. Absolute Skin and Body Care. Give them a call. You're listening to the John Lebang Show. It's huge. Now I got to tweet about it. And as we continue our report on Event 201 and how it has lots and lots and lots of similarities to Operation COVID-19, we go to March 22nd, where Corona, martial law, and so many other things are being talked about on my show with guest Wayne S. Pierce of American Liberty Radio Network. We cover a host of topics. We try to cover both sides of everything. Good listen. You'll want to check that one out. We move past that to March 23rd, and that is when Trump activated the National Guard in 3 states. And Michigan ordered people to stay home. By now, this has been a countrywide event. People having to stay home because of the COVID-19, the government, who is acting, at least in the beginning stages, acting constitutionally when they're telling you to stay home because it is for the welfare of the people, you stay home. A lot of people argue that they're forcing people. They didn't force people at first. They advised people to stay home, and although many people did, a larger group of people ignored those recommendations and continued their life as nothing had ever changed. But we're beginning to find out that almost everything in life is changing and will continue to change. March 23rd, we also did a video on our YouTube channel, which is still available on our website, called The Mystery of the Missing Presidential Seal. It discussed not only some of the executive orders that went into effect as soon as Trump declared the national emergency, but it also pointed to the fact that the presidential seal had been removed from the COVID-19 task force, and all there was now was the White House as a placard available on the podium. I did a video on that, as I said, suggesting that possibly something bigger was at play because of the so-called seal being gone. Now, I'll be doing another report very soon called The Mystery of the Missing Presidential Seal Revisited, probably in the next 2, 3, or 4 days. What I can report is the seal returned on March 28th and then immediately was gone on April Fool's Day, April 1st. So it was there for 4 days. We continue as we move to March 24th. India locks down their entire country, and YouTube restricts video quality, which was an interesting development. They're claiming that more people are streaming on the internet, so they have to restrict the number or the quality of video during all that. Of course, restricting the quality of video also makes things harder to see in videos, and anybody doing some independent reporting, their HD videos might not be so clear until all this is over, if it ever gets over. Now, on March 25th, Los Angeles Sheriff orders gun stores closed. And now we went from 10 times as bad as the flu to 3 times as bad as the flu because the information continues to change. And those people that are stuck on the information that happened 3 weeks ago, and you haven't been able to change with the expanding information, you're weeks behind. And your information, although it might solidify your belief, that doesn't mean it's accurate or true. UK on the 26th no longer considers COVID-19 an infectious disease. We had posted that article on that day's Daily Brew because we're trying to give you all aspects of this. We're not trying to give you a narrative. We don't want this to happen. We don't have an agenda behind this except for getting you all the information possible and letting you decide what you think is going on. Now, on the same day, U.S. uses part of that stimulus money to buy into the airlines. Very much like they're forcing themselves into manufacturing and telling these people through some kind of wartime powers that they have to develop specific items that the government says they have to develop. Sounds like Nazi Germany to me, but whatever. The $2.2 to $2.6 trillion stimulus package that was passed on the 28th, signed by President Donald Trump, adds tremendous amount of debt. And if we do get up to that $6.2 trillion, that equals roughly to about $33,000 of debt per individual taxpayer in the United States, and you're only getting a $1,200 check. Take that into consideration. If you're going to give out a stimulus that's worth $33,000 per taxpayer, maybe you should get that $33,000 yourself so you can put it towards your mortgage, put it towards something. But you're going to get $1,200, and the rest of the money is going to be evaporated into helping out all kinds of other things. Notice the small businesses get loans. They get loans that possibly can be forgiven. In the end, I bet you they're not. I bet you those poor little businesses are going to be in hock because, well, the government promised them they didn't have to pay back the loan, and they're going to find a way to make them pay those loans back. Bailing out industries, bailing out the banks, all going down on the American taxpayer. $33,000 a piece, ladies and gentlemen, and you're getting $1,200. Also, we talked about this earlier, 21 million Chinese cell phone users went bye-bye. They just disappeared right after this whole thing with COVID-19. People who downplay this seem to have forgotten how the Chinese were acting. Well, I didn't. The Chinese were rounding up anybody that possibly could have had it, and they went bye-bye. They went gone. Woo-woo! All gone. March 28th, Trump issues order to bring former soldiers back to duty. Up to 1 million U.S. soldiers could be recalled to active duty to supposedly combat COVID-19. Now, do you think 1 million soldiers are needed for that? For 2 years, by the way. Or is something larger looming? Something bigger looming out there? Why would you need 1 million men for anything? 1 million people. I don't want to be gender specific to men, because there are women that are probably being called back as well. But why would you need 1 million or up to 1 million? On the 29th, Getting Your Mind Right, that was a video I did, part of the complete episode of the John Lebang Show that weekend. It was covering how you can better deal with being quarantined now that we've been quarantined for multiple weeks. And some of you, I know it's really dragging you down. And that episode, including the video, was there to help you cope and maybe give you ideas on to better move forward as things continue to get worse and the outlook for all of this. Well, unfortunately, the banger doesn't think the outlook is very good. March 30th, D.C. mayor threatens to jail people for not staying home. Also, a pastor in Florida was arrested. You can find that on that day's Daily Brew. As we move into April, it goes from virus to control. That's right. April 1st, Bill Gates outlines 3 steps to combating the coronavirus. Well, he would know, wouldn't he? He had been part of a simulation that coincidentally mirrors the current crisis that the world is facing. Also, they're developing a tracking app to detect sick people. So we're going from a virus to controlling people. And we've slowly seen this as they've locked down cities, taken away all small business. Notice, ladies and gentlemen, that it's mostly small business that has been shut down. Still, the large operations are still open. They're doing their thing. They're still raking in the money. And I know this because I'm still working, and I work for one of them larger than life corporations that are too big to fail. Too big to care, but too big to fail. April 2nd, New Jersey governor orders the commandeering of medical supplies. He's sending out state troopers to commandeer medical supplies from whoever they can get it from. And if it's you, you're going to be out of supplies. And if you happen to need them, tough cookies, it went to the government. Sounds like freedom to me, folks. Sounds like freedom to me. Also on April 5th, I really forgot to mention this, and this is really important. The president, who had another COVID-19 task force meeting, briefing, whatever you want to call it, after 4 days of having the presidential seal back, it was gone again on April 1st. Joining him on the stage wasn't the normal characters that were there, Fucci and Brinks or whatever her name is, or Pence. No. It was a host of military and police joining him on the stage. And oddly enough, we went from a COVID-19 briefing to a cartel briefing. And apparently we're moving ships, destroyers, and all kinds of other military vessels down through Florida, off the coast, through the Caribbean, all there. Now, I don't know about you folks, but I don't know how that's supposed to be part of the COVID-19 operation. Now, they were blaming that the cartels were going to take advantage of the current situation. That may be true, but you have to remember, folks, that the cartels are no different than terrorists. They're the front lines to the people who are, generally their masters. With terrorists, a lot of times it's Iran or something like that. With these cartels, their bosses, let's say like the Venezuelan government or some other governments, they may not control them as much as they just allow it to happen, and they get a little grease for it. That military movement, which happens to echo all those tanks that was videotaped around March 2nd, going down to Pensacola, Florida, sounds like there's military movement going on, and it's not about handling the cartels as much as it is something a little larger. April 3rd, patients ordered to wear GPS. Again, they're trying to track people. Barr releases federal inmates back into the population, claiming they don't want them to get COVID-19. When military assets are being moved, something bigger is afoot. I'm John Lebang. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you to all of our affiliate stations that carry the John Lebang Show. Don't forget, go to the website www.jlebang.com to read all the information that I just talked about. It's available there. And until the vibrations of my vocal cords reach your ears again, I'm John Lebang, thanking you. We'll see you next time, right here on the John Lebang Show.
T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5,